Not too long ago, I released a video about the history of Persona 4 Arena and Persona 4 Arena Ultimax. The video featured several clips from an interview that I conducted with Lord Knight. Lord Knight currently plays Dragon Ball Fighterz professionally for Team Beast Coast, and it was an EVO finalist for both Persona 4 Arena and BlazBlue. So what I'm here to share with you all today is that full unedited interview. I hope you enjoy. My first question is, when did you first hear about Persona 4 Arena?
So we learned about it via a surprise announcement. If I remember it correctly, there was a lead up to when Persona Day is, like the day Persona 4 actually starts.
Yeah.
And they had an announcement before that. Like they're like, you don't know what's coming, and everyone's like, oh, they might be making like another follow up to this game or something like that. And they're like, oh, it's a fighting game with Persona 4 characters. And I was like, ayo. And when they announced that, it was a huge surprise. Like nobody saw that coming when they announced it. I think at the end of 2011, I want to say.
I think the official announcement was at TGS in 2011.
Yeah, something like that.
My next question is, because I know you played Central Fiction afterwards, but did you play any BlazBlue before you played Persona 4 Arena?
I'm uh I'm BlazBlue Evo finalist actually. I
That's
play
what
a
I
ton of
thought. Yeah.
BlazBlue. Yeah.
So my question is, how similar were the two games? Because they were developed by the BlazBlue, the same team.
They're pretty similar. There's obviously some differences. So a lot of Arc System Works games have a bunch of system mechanics that carry over between every game, essentially. Usually just like protection things to keep certain things from being like broken or not working a certain way. Then from there, they have system stuff that's unique to the game. So all the Arc System Works games feel like a little similar, but then once you dig a little bit deeper, you're like, okay, there's a good amount of variance. So coincidentally, BB and Persona are really similar. So a lot of the strong US players were all BB players. Like I think pretty much every top Persona player except for like Bananacan was a BB player first. Bananacan played BlazBlue after.
Okay. Could you
Yeah.
explain some of the more specifically what some of the similarities are? 'Cause I know you mentioned some of the defensive options, I think, but
Yeah. So at a so at a baseline, right? So the two games shared instant block, right? So that's a mechanic where you can time blocking, like manually blocking by tapping back or tapping down back to gain meter and also reduce your opponent's frame advantage, which is a pretty important mechanic in both games. The movement is pretty similar. Like characters can run, backdash, jump, double jump, or jump and air dash. Um, both games are 4 button games. Both games have systems where like if you block things in the air, you get your air options back. Like I think those are probably like the main. Oh, they both have gatlings. They both have save move proration. It's something to prevent infinites, which might sound funny if you play Persona, but they do have they tried at least anyway. They both have burst as mechanics, so you combo breaker. I don't think BlazBlue had. Okay, yeah, I don't think BlazBlue has that other thing. But those are like a bunch of mechanics that carry over between the two games, as well as like there's some character, a little bit of character similarity because like every fighting game's gonna have protag and protag's friend and like super mix up character, grappler character, like things like that.
so what made you decide to pick up the game?
I like Persona. That's it. I like Persona. And Arx is made a Persona game. Like I actually remember when that game came out, there was some heat of like, oh, there's these fighting game tryhards that only play fighting games. They don't know anything about Persona. The series was still like kind of niche back then, kind of underground a little bit still. But I mean, I played before I played the fighting game, and I loved it. So that was it.
So for someone who'd never played the game before, how would you give them a general overview of the gameplay of the game?
So Persona 4 Arena is a pretty accessible. I mean, it's gonna sound like some lazy dev marketing speak, but the goal of the game is to get new players, specifically not just new players, but people who play RPGs like Persona to play a fighting game. And I think they did a pretty good job with it. So the game is really easy to pick up. It's the first game, anime game that had auto combos. It was super controversial when it came out. So that's you can press one button and do a short combo mechanic. So if you played an RPG, you can just hop in and at least be able to do a combo even if you can't do the other stuff. And yeah, that was their whole goal, was just to get new people in, a balance of getting new people in and getting people who like regularly play fighting games to like play this game for a while.
So I did want to cover. I'm glad you brought it up because I did want to talk about the auto combos, and because
Mm.
I remember hearing some buzz about it when it was first talked about it. But how controversial was it at the
It
time?
was.
And
Oh,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. Sorry.
I
Go
was
ahead.
going to say, like, I wanted to know how controversial it was, and did it end up actually being that big of a deal at high level play?
Yeah. So it was stupidly controversial. Like people. There was a lot of buzz for this game, of course, when it was announced, and they shared this aspect of the game like pretty early before it was released, and it got so much heat from fighting game players saying it's for scrubs, blah blah blah. But this actually happens in every new game that has auto combos now. But like at high level play, so at low level play, you just get to do your 5 hit combo that does like no damage. But at high level play, there's some benefits actually to using the auto combo. So, for example, my Mitsuru, like sometimes the only thing she can do is auto combo to do a combo. Like the way her combos work, she is not guaranteed full combos like other characters. You have to use the auto combo. Also, the auto combo is a way a really creative way actually of putting normals they think would be too good behind like a barrier. So or giving characters options they wouldn't normally have or might be too strong, and they put it behind the auto combo barrier. It also gives characters way more varied gatlings because auto combos are usually like 4 or 5 hits, and the game is 4 buttons, so they're able to like you can cancel out of the auto combo whenever you want. So you can like vary your offense more than if you just had the 4 buttons. So it ended up being fine at high level. Like for the most part, other characters don't really use their auto combo, and you see me to use hers all the time. Then like later, no, that's actually a different game. I'm thinking about a different game's auto combo. But yeah, it ended up being fine, and like it wasn't it wasn't stupid. It didn't make it so that people who don't play fighting games at all could be people who practice really hard, like people were saying, as usual. People always over exaggerate.
I know we touched on it a little bit earlier. We were comparing Arena to BlazBlue, but what are the some of the more unique things about the game that make it stand out from, say, BlazBlue or Guilty Gear?
So one is that the way that BlazBlue is actually at a baseline really similar to Guilty Gear, and then over time they kind of branched off into its own thing. How they made new characters, new systems, stuff like that. Persona at the beginning, like Persona 4 Arena is like I would say a little bit further from BlazBlue and GG because there's some system mechanics like you can manually control when your character turns around in the air, which I can't really think of another fighting game that does that like straight up. You also have no the defender, which is a pretty important thing for this game. The defender can't push the opponent away like in BlazBlue and Guilty Gear. That's a really important mechanic for BlazBlue and Guilty Gear. You can't do that in Persona. You only have instant block, but the trade-off is you have I forgot about this. Oh man, you have a 2 button dragon punch, a 2 button invincible move. I don't actually know what they call it in English. I only know the JP name. But when that was another thing that people were like, this game's for scrubs because you don't have to input DP manually. So instead of having like the push away mechanic, you had the easy reversal input. It's just 2 buttons. So you had to kind of threaten using this pretty risky option that was easy to do more often than those other two games. I didn't mix in like mashing, like pressing buttons, backdashing, jumping out, like things like that. It made the game like pretty high stress because offense is really strong in the game, like really, really strong in the game over time.
So what about the game didn't you like?
It's character stuff like that. It's actually my favorite fighting game still to this day. The first Persona 4 Arena. The only thing, and even then, there's stuff I don't like, and the main thing is just character stuff. Like I despise Shadow Labrys as a character, playing against her especially. Chie is pretty annoying, and that's really it. So the class is pretty small, which is a good thing I would say overall for somebody who's like pretty serious about fighting games. It's bad for casuals though, because like they don't care, or they're not they don't care. I'm saying this wrong. Like they won't put that much time into one character probably, or if they do put that much time into one character, they're not going to dig that deep type of thing. So they want to see a lot of characters and stuff. But for like learning a new game, a small cast is like kiss his fingertips. Like I really like when new games have small casts, so because I'm like I can learn the game.
So can you explain the major differences between Arena and Ultimax?
Yeah. So Arena is like their first game. Ultimax is the second, right? So by the time Ultimax comes out, they have a pretty good idea of how Persona is played. Sometimes like when Arxis makes new games, they have an idea of what they think is going to happen and they bounce around that for a while. And then after a while of watching people play and stuff, then they start adding stuff based on that. So Ultimax to me is their response to how people play Persona 4 Arena. So the major stuff they did is they made knockdown offense much weaker than before. Like or yeah, that's the way to put it. Because in the original one, I don't know if you played the game, but like there are a bunch of characters who have like knockdown, place their persona on you 50-50 style offense, which, as we know, every fighting game right now is trying to take out that type of stuff as much as possible. It was really, really strong. It's one of the maybe most consistent things you'd see. So they took basically all of it away or made it really hard to do. That was a big thing. They made jumping stronger and they made anti-airs weaker. This is the first time I had experience dealing with that, but now it's like a pretty common thing in a bunch of fighting games like Street Fighter 5. They complain about that. Dragon Ball Fighterz anti-airs are weak. Guilty Gear Strive up until we don't know about the next beta, but like every patch that we've played, people are like anti-airs aren't good enough. They added a bunch of characters to Ultimax. They made auto combos have a little bit more use, I think, and they added some like extra ways to get meter and stuff that involves using auto combo. Plus, the shadow characters they added too, like more shadow characters. So they added a bunch of stuff to Ultimax.
I think you said earlier that you preferred Arena. You think that the first Arena that you said that was your favorite. So,
Yeah,
like, what did you like better in Arena than Ultimax?
I think Ultimax is like too heavy-handed with the balance of like how the game how the game's played. Like it feels like I can feel that Arxis wants me to do certain things, not that I'm playing against somebody. So, oh, I'm playing against like you're Narukami and you're doing this, so I need to do this. Like the way the game is built, it feels like the game is telling you you have to do this, not you're playing against somebody and they're making you do that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Would you say do you think that was a concession made to make it more appealing to the casual player?
Yeah, it's definitely it's definitely to help casuals. It's actually one of the things I hate the most about like Dragon Ball is the current game I'm playing. It's the thing I hate the most about it is that it has this feeling of like you have to do this stuff that the dev is telling you to do, not like a lot of the strategy in the game and like how you deal with people and characters and stuff is all like the dev says this has to work this way. I hate that the most in fighting games, I think.
Was there anything that you noticed that Arc System Works may have taken from the Persona 4 Arena games when they made Central Fiction or future BlazBlue games?
I wouldn't really say so. I mean, there's like some smaller stuff, I guess, where uh, like for example, like how the impact of hits, right? So like BlazBlue in the earlier games had an issue both of combos being too long, and also it's not that the literal combos like had too many hits. It's just like the way they had the hit animations took too long. And I think in Persona they kind of, and they tried to fix it and extend like BlazBlue CS extend, but in Persona I think they did a really good job of that. And then in CP after they did a really good job of that, and it looked like Persona to me. They didn't really like by that time in BB, because I think CP came out after Persona 4 Arena 1. And by that time in BB really established itself as its own game in CP, I think. It really started going its own way because they added like OD, everything was faster, characters got super reworked, like Lychee got super reworked, Valentine got kind of reworked, not kind of, actually got really reworked. A bunch of characters got a bunch of new stuff in CP, like really new system mechanics. So I think it started going its own way and not like stuff based off Persona by that point. They knew how to make BB by that point.
Do you ever go back to Persona? I don't, I know that the competitive scene for it has died down a lot recently, but
I play Arena 1 every now and then. There are people who are like, oh, you can play Ultimax 2.0 on Parsec and stuff like that. I don't really like playing fighting games on PC. I'm not like a super big fan of Parsec and like all those like solutions really. So like, in my head, I'm like, I really love this game. I played it a ton. I competed really hard. I did my best. I had some great stories, and like it was cool. Like it's cool.
well, I guess that's mostly what I had about Persona 4. But I guess I am curious because, especially last year during COVID, with all the tournament cancellations and everything, a lot of people were turning to Parsec to host their tournaments and everything online. So
Mhm.
I'm just wondering how you kind of operated in 2020. If or did you have to just force yourself to play on Parsec, or do you just? I don't think Dragon Ball was. Now that I think about it, I don't know if Dragon Ball was held on Parsec a lot, but
No, they do a lot of Parsec, PC, and PS4 tournaments. I played no online tournaments. The only online tournament I played was the official one that they invited me to, which I was like, this is like a pretty good thing in multiple ways. Like it'll get me some exposure. Like I was building YouTube and stuff like that. I legitimately wanted to like play in it. I hadn't played in the tournament in a long time at that point. I thought the format was cool. I had a team idea that was like, I can get super good with this team really fast because I'm basically forced to play the best players in my region every week, like first to five. So like if I win, cool. If I lose, then I have like amazing match feedback of how to get better with the team. So that was like the only thing that I did. Besides that, like 2020, once everything started getting shut down, was I had a thought in 2019 of during Dragon Ball of like I think that there's certain aspects of my play that I put too much stock into, and other aspects that I have not put enough stock into, and I had to like think about being more like my approach to certain things. So since there was no tournaments in 2020, I was like, okay, there's no pressure. I can just do this one step at a time by like playing online, playing offline with people every now and then, like people in my like immediate region who are like quarantining too. We play like offline every now and then like reviewing my matches and just like breaking everything down like this. And that's all I've been doing. I think it's been going well too.
oh, that's good to hear.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, like, so with Dragon Ball, because
Mhm.
as far as I'm aware, there hasn't been, other than the national championships they just heard, they just finished, I think, what early this year or late last year. I don't think there have been any sort of announcements for another competitive season for it. So I'm wondering
Mhm.
if I'm assuming that if there is, that you're going to continue playing. But were you planning on picking up Strive?
I'm definitely playing Strive. I don't actually know what my plans are, like besides Strive tournament wise, because like this year, okay, they added Gogeta, and then they didn't really announce anything else. I'm still playing, like and practicing the game. Strive's coming out, Strive's at Evo. That's like an easy, like let's just play it. And then they randomly announced Melty, so I'm like, okay, do I play Melty? Like, what do I? So I don't want to play more than 2 games, so I don't know what to do actually once Melty drops. So if I get like a confirmation, there's no more at least dev supported competitive Dragon Ball, that means that I'll probably play something else. But if there is dev supported Dragon Ball, then I really don't know what to do. I just have to make up my mind what to do.